Welcome to Slow and Steady, the podcast where you get to follow along as we build products in public. Each episode gives you an honest peek into our lives as we share our struggles, our wins, and everything in between. I'm Benedikt, and I'm feeling a little sweaty.
And I'm Benedicte. Today is May 26th. This is episode number 223, and I am feeling overwhelmed.
Only 2 weeks to go until you set sail and live the pirate life, I guess.
Absolutely. And it's 2 weeks. And we have to pack down a whole house and move it into the neighbor house on the same property. We're moving internally. So I'm booking movers. We are trying to pack a lot of it ourselves. And then we have to pack everything down in the other house for renovations so that we will have bedrooms when we come back. And I have to choose colors. And, I can't sleep because of the colors. I can't decide. I'm just overwhelmed. So today, while I was doing my planning session with the group that I plan with on Mondays, I was like, how am I going to get the whole family on board? Because there's like so many to-dos. And then I'm like, we have a tool for this. So I took down our gallery wall in our living room because it's going to go down anyway. And I've just covered it in Post-its. So as soon as I have a task, I'm just going to put it on there. And it's a very crude, very ugly, but hopefully super useful Kanban board.
Kanban boards, yeah, very underrated, especially for stuff like this. I remember my sister's wedding. It was like similar. Like we arrived there a couple days before, and everyone was like, "Oh, panic! Like how we get everything done." And my parents have like this big two like split into glass door, and we just like one side was to do, and the other side was done. And then we put everything down on Post-its and put names on it, who's going to do what, or like every couple of hours we'd meet in front of the door and like move stuff around, Post-its around. And it's so helpful just to get it out of your brain and visualize it, right? That's the most important part of it. Like you still have to do the same work, but at least you don't like you shut down that separate background thread that's like still going through the list of things you need to take care of, because you can always just like, yeah, it's on the door, it's on the Post-its. I don't have to remember it. It's taken care of.
and it's in some place that everybody can view. I mean, we also have a child, who's going to be doing some of these tasks, and Ula also likes like the physical aspects of things, or like likes these things to be physical, and I like it too. It's just that I could also do the digital one, but for like this type of task, like having to be on your phone the whole time or like on your
like and there's something to the physical one where you like just see it out of the corner of your eyes, right? Like it's there, and you just glance over and like get a sense of what's happening with it. I you don't get those with the digital ones. I feel like you have to actively check those.
When I'm overwhelmed at night and I just end up like doom scrolling, like I'll see it, so maybe I'll get up and like just do one of them instead of
yeah
because it's like, as you said, like it's there in the corner of your eye. But I'd kind of forgotten, because I've had done projects where we were all co-located in the past, and I've always been a proponent of getting things up on the wall. That's something I learned from my mom, who was a CTO, and she always did this when she came in and kind of she came in and cleaned up development teams and their processes and like get them to ship. And she would always start with a physical wall, because then like to get everybody on the same page and have those discussions. And the discussion, like if you're going to do stand-up type thing, I feel like having a wall to stand around, or a door or whatever, it just makes the stand-up work a lot better. Because when you're all just like on a Zoom or on a Google Meet or whatever, people just kind of like just talk about what they've done and nobody is that interested. But when like you're on the wall, you can be like, well, I'm working on this, and it's like, you get to start getting those,
like, get the accomplishment of like taking it and moving it.
And so she would and she even did that when they had a team in Warsaw. They actually had a wall on both, and they like filmed them. So they could see Warsaw's wall, and then the Norwegian wall. Like they couldn't move things on the other wall, I think, but like there was some kind of way, I don't remember exactly what what she did, but she was like, no, we're not going to put this into any digital system until we've nailed down a process, because
Yep.
changing a digital system just takes so, I mean, she was a pro at getting project management tools to do what she wanted. I think that was like
Mm-hmm.
one of her like big skills, but she was like, we need to nail the process before we start taking the time to get these management tools to work in the way we need them. So she had lots of
Yep.
fun stories from that. And I actually found her old post-it, these like super large post-its. I'll show it for whoever watches, but for those listening, it's like 2 times A3, or it's like an A1, I guess. It's
Ooh,
like
okay. They're legitimately huge.
and that's what I used as the background, because we all know post-its don't stick to walls, but luckily it stuck to the large post-its, and the large post-its stuck to the wall.
Nice. Yeah.
So we're gonna get this done. But over to what we've been working on. How's the 2 weeks been?
Yeah. Last week, or like the last 2 weeks, have been super productive. In user list, we're obviously still working on the redesign project, and I can say that I still haven't touched any of it, like personally. So, I always, like, every week I start with the plan of like, this week I'm going to dive in and contribute to that, and then something else comes up and I do something else instead. But it's also, as we discussed last time, it's also kind of nice to have this moving forward and be able to focus on other stuff. And as a result, I worked on a couple of things. For one, we shipped the array filtering, I think I mentioned last week. That's done, it's deployed. The UI works really great now. Like, it covers all the use cases. It covers filtering arrays of arrays where I have literally no idea what the use case would be, but it works. And also help to reduce some, like, it's crazy, right? Like, the use case now solved is like more complex than anything we did before, but implementing it and making it work simplified the entire implementation of the thing. So that was kind of funny. Like, you can do crazy stuff now, but the implementation is like super straightforward at this point. So that was kind of cool. And the other
I
thing we
love
shipped,
following these with you because you had the product for so long. It feels like this is happening again and again, where you've had something in production and it's working, and it's been like messing, like been there in the back of your mind, and then a new use case comes
yeah.
in, and then you're like, and it's so much simpler.
Yeah, like, I keep running into this as well, where I'm like, hey, we've been doing this for, like, by the way, we celebrated 7 years of user list on Saturday.
Oh, woohoo! I wanna.
Woohoo!
Where's my
Seven.
little celebration thing? I don't have one.
At least incorporation of the company, but that was on Saturday. But yeah, like, I'm always surprised that we're doing this for 7 years plus now, and I still relearn what we actually do and how the system is actually supposed to work. And whenever I think now we've figured it out, a couple of months later, there's a new angle to it, and I'm like, okay, it's not quite right because of this or because of that. And then it takes months, years, or whatever until we get to revisit it and maybe crack a code or like crack a pattern and unlock new things. And the crazy part as well is, like, this area filtering feature is a huge step forward. Like, it unlocks stuff that we weren't able to do before. But also, I finished it and immediately was like, yeah, that's nice, but without that other feature, it doesn't make any sense. So, like, whenever you unlock one thing, you realize that there's two new things you could do now that would be super useful and super cool, and you should probably work on those as the next thing. So it's hard to celebrate those milestones because you're always like 2 steps ahead of, like, but now this doesn't work, and now we need to do this to be fully able to take advantage of that. And, like, I don't know, it's just crazy. But it keeps going like this. So yeah, that was the one thing we shipped, at least behind the feature flag. The one customer who requested it and really had that use case, I think they're starting to use it within the next couple of days. So let's see if they find any problems with it. The other thing we built a couple of weeks ago already, but never got to like polish and test and ship, was recurring triggers. And that is finished up as well. We're still having that internal debate of like, should we name it recurring triggers or scheduled triggers or time-based triggers? We still have to fight over that, I guess, in the next couple of days.
How did you solve it? I remember you were having some, or is that a trade secret?
Do you remember what this thing was we were struggling with? Because I don't at the moment.
You were like, how would you do birthdays?
Oh, like, yeah, like we solved the birthdays.
But because that's a part of this recurring trigger thing, right?
It isn't actually. It's a separate thing.
I thought it was.
So that was anniversary filters, which kind of get you the same thing or like a similar thing, but that was specifically for like if you signed up a year ago and stuff like that. The recurring triggers, and maybe I never mentioned them on the podcast, but the recurring triggers is basically like right now, like all the triggers either happen when a condition matches. For example, a user goes into that segment and becomes a trialing user or whatever. Then we start the campaign or the workflow, and or an event happens and stuff like that. But the recurring triggers, you basically define like a recurrence rule, something like every other day or every first Monday of every second month or something like that. And then we will run this workflow at those times, and you can attach an additional addition so you choose who actually received that. But that allows you to do stuff like weekly reports or monthly webinar invites or something like that on a schedule. And I think that's a pretty powerful feature that will unlock a couple of use cases that we didn't really solve before. And yeah, it's done, it's tested, still not enabled for everyone, but at least ready enough to be shipped to production behind the feature flag. So that was the other thing we did last week. And kind of as a bonus, we also migrated our Redis databases from Heroku Redis to Dragonfly Cloud last week, which was a thing that I wanted to do for quite a while, even though like initially triggered by there was that controversy about the Redis license not being open source anymore. And I think they reverted that a couple of weeks ago. But there were other problems with specifically Heroku Redis, where every couple of months they do scheduled maintenance, software updates and stuff like that. And that would always, like that wasn't a zero downtime deployment on the Redis database. And as a result, wasn't a zero downtime maintenance on userlist itself. So every couple of months, or sometimes it felt like every couple of weeks, we'd have like a little bit of downtimes, usually Saturday mornings, because that's when I usually schedule these to happen. Where just the Redis database, where we do all the queues and like accept all the data, would just be down for a minute or so because it was updating. And that was so annoying because it was basically the one major thing that caused downtime on our APIs. So that was one motivation. And also Redis, like Heroku Redis, compared to Dragonfly Cloud, where we are now, is much more expensive in terms of like what you pay for the gigabytes of memory you get. And because we're now also doing transactional messages, we launched those a couple weeks ago. And we also added support for like rendering on like your application and then basically sending the fully rendered message through our API. We're now like the payloads that go into our Redis queues are like much larger now. And therefore, like, I think we had a gigabyte of memory on Heroku Redis. And just by switching, we pay half the price for 12 gigabytes now. So it was like sort of a no-brainer. And I wanted to do this for quite a while now, but the migration strategy wasn't clear to me, like especially with like zero downtime. Until last week, I found a tool called Redis Shake, and that basically allows you to connect it to two Redis databases, and it would just like sync one into the other. And this way, we were able to connect to the Redis databases on Heroku and to the new ones in Dragonfly, and just like continuously sync the changes, and then just point the application from one to the other, and would just like work without any downtime. That was super amazing. So we switched both of our Redis databases, one on Friday and the other one on Sunday, without any problems, within a couple of minutes.
I mean,
no downtime,
shouldn't have
nothing.
worked. That shouldn't have worked. It feels like one of those things where it's too good to be true.
I mean, maybe I forgot something or missed something, but
no,
so
I'm
far
sure
it
you're
doesn't
good.
look like it. It's like it just worked, and that was super smooth. And cannot just recommend it. Like, I mean, wherever you want to migrate to, from wherever to wherever, but Redis Shake was super easy to set up, super easy to run, and the entire thing took 5 minutes. And as I said, no downtime, so that was pretty cool.
I feel like there's been a lot of like improvements in the database kind of tooling space. Like, this is not, my area of expertise at all, but just following tech news, there seems to be a lot of like things like new databases coming. But maybe that has like made the older databases, so like the tooling around the, I don't know, older, more like boring tech or whatever you want to call it, that there's like more things coming up or tooling around those that you can do these things, because some of these newer databases and some of them have gone bust over the last couple of weeks, or been sold at least. They did a lot, a lot of them do a lot of cool things. And then people are expecting that maybe from the older technologies. And then that people are seeing that there's an opportunity to create a tool like the one you used. I don't know if it was paid or not, but I also seen SATA that we worked for a little bit, that has Postgres and Redis in one. They've also started like releasing a lot of like open source tooling that do a lot of these things that people are expecting from like databases now, after using some of these newer ones. So I think maybe even if a lot of people are having issues right now because their databases, the database of their choice is not in operation anymore, I think it's at least spurred maybe some innovation or inspiration for
might
Redis
be the case,
and Postgres.
That might be the case.
And I don't know, it's just like these like, I've been going down a Cloudflare rabbit hole, and it just seems like databases and compute, they call it like compute or whatever, it's just getting cheaper and cheaper, and everybody wants to be a hosting provider now. They're all AWS or Cloudflare behind the scene, but like something is happening where it's so easy to spin up a hosting service that everybody's spinning up a hosting service. Like Webflow is now as hosting service next to their regular hosting service, where you can deploy Next and Astro applications at this point, I think. Database people probably understand this a lot more than me. I'm just seeing there's a lot of things happening on that like lower level part of our
that's true. It's exciting to see that like even the old school databases are still active, and there's still movement and like improvements, and that just gets me exciting. Because like one secret strategy of mine is like to just sit out scaling problems until the technology catches up.
It's been working.
We can optimize those queries, or we wait for the new Postgres version to be released, which is like 5% more efficient, and it just fixes it.
Poof, gone.
I mean, sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't, but it's still great to see the progress and get those benefits.
Yep.
Yeah. The other learning I had this week, and I'm not sure what to make of it just yet, but I realized this weekend that I read fiction books, like non-fiction books, as fiction books.
But they're usually
like,
partly fiction.
yeah, maybe. But like, I noticed that a couple years ago, I had no problem like reading books on business strategy, um, doing customer interviews, stuff like how to build a bootstrap business, stuff like that. I just devoured those because I didn't have a business, right? And these days, I should probably read a couple books, but I have such a hard time reading business books because I'm like, especially on the weekends or in the evenings, I'm like, just leave me alone, right? Like, I have this all my day during the entire day. I don't want to have more of it. And instead, I now read books about other stuff that I don't currently do, but maybe want to do in the future. So, so it's kind of funny to me that I'm apparently fantasizing about my own future by reading books that would be helpful then.
It's also called escapism, and a lot of us read for that purpose. And I
Yep,
do
I guess.
still think it's better to read escapism than doom scroll escapism or television
Probably.
series binging escapism. So I think it makes total sense. I think if you're going to read a book that is actually super useful for you in your everyday business life, you'll need to read that on business time. Like,
Probably,
if
yeah.
I was an employee somewhere and they wanted me to learn a new thing, like, sometimes I would just learn things at night because I'm, that kind of person sometimes. But if I wasn't, like, when I was in the trenches with like having a small child, if my boss was like, you need to learn this and you need to read these books, yeah, I would have to read them in, work hours. Like, I didn't have any time outside of work
Yep.
to
Yep.
read about work. So I think you'd have to allow yourself to read these books during business hour if you actually think
Yeah.
they will benefit the business, because your
Yep.
free time is your free time.
Exactly. And I currently have a hard time prioritizing reading during business hours because there's so
Mhm.
much stuff going on, right? Like, and while I have been raving about like the quarterly planning for the
Mhm.
last couple of episodes, and I still think it's good, but it also just exaggerates that problem even more, right? Because now we have like a super tight schedule, and I need like have a list of stuff that needs to be done in 5 weeks, and I can't just like get away and like sit down and read a book. Like, sure, maybe it would
And it
help
needs to be planned
long
in the
term.
quarterly planning.
I guess we need to have the section of books I'm going to read this quarter. That's actually not a bad idea. I should probably just do that.
Because if you
And
actually think they're going to be good for business, because I think a lot of the business books I used to read a lot of business books, and I like put them in the same category as like easy to read self-help books, and I usually read them
mhm,
so that I will fall asleep. Like, that is the purpose
mhm,
of these books, is that they're not interesting enough that I can't put them down. Because if I get into a good novel, like, I will not sleep. I will read the whole night, right? So I read
mhm.
these books because they are a little bit uninteresting in a way, or like at least they're not page turners, right? So I wouldn't say all of them would be worthy of a read during business hours. So if you actually believe it's
Yeah,
gonna be helpful, then read it during business hours. If it is more like an escapism, kind of like self-help book disguised as the business book, maybe just not read them, because they're not
yeah. I
they're
guess
not
I
that
don't read
insightful.
those. I don't. I guess I don't read those at all. But like, problem is like
No.
I can't read business books at night because it just gets like. I mean, sure, if it's a bad one, then maybe it works. But like, if it's somewhat helpful, it just gets my mind going too much,
Mm,
and
mm.
that doesn't help us falling asleep. Then I'd rather read a fiction
Yep.
book and just like have the escapism. And what works pretty well for me is just like reading chapter by chapter, and then if you read like just make a rule, I'm going to read one chapter and then put it down. That usually works for me.
You're
But
better at this than me, because I have tried. I will try again. And I might fail again, but I will try.
Yeah. I mean,
There'll be a
then
lot of
again,
time
like
to read
I
on the
pick up a
phone.
book at night, and before trying to like when I'm in bed, I can usually make it like 2 or 3 pages, and I just fall asleep, no matter the book. Well, not the business book, but like the fiction books.
Yeah.
I just like, fall asleep.
Good side note.
Yeah. So I guess
So,
that was what
no,
was
I want to
happening in
hear,
previous.
dear listener, what do you read to fall asleep? That would be fun if
Yeah, that would
somebody
be
wanted to
interesting. Yeah.
DM us their preference for nighttime reading. Is it fiction? Is it nonfiction? Is it semi-good business self-help books? What?
Yeah.
What do you read? What do you read? Yeah. So I've been spending a lot of time on Reddit, Reddit forum or subreddits, I guess it's called, and other forums, trying to get under the skin of our possible Galleon customers, our ideal customer profile. It sounds so professional when you start talking about your ICPs.
Yeah.
But and also LinkedIn. And when I found a lot of people, I did just a search for Webflow and Airtable and no code on LinkedIn to kind of see what people were saying there in their post. And when I looked at their profile, almost all of them had visual developer as their title on LinkedIn. So I found that kind of fascinating. So they are kind of aware that their strength, I guess, is coming from the design side, but I also think it is in the way that they build things. They build it through a visual interface. So they call themselves developers, and they use Webflow or other tools, but they make that distinction with visual. So I thought that's like at least a word we can use or adopt and have as our first ICP. But then I also went in and I asked a question, I think in Base Row, which it's a new open source European Airtable competitor. And like, how do you get data into a website? And the answer is just like worker. And I'm pretty sure that stands for Cloudflare workers. But the word worker is just like thrown around in all of these forums. It's the solution to anything. So they're doing like all of this visual coding or visual development, and then somebody has like a little bit more of an advanced issue. Somebody will literally just write, use a worker, like with no tutorial, no nothing. It's just like worker. And then I had a support ticket come in throughout Seta where they were using WeWeb, I think. I think I mentioned this last time, but they were using WeWeb. And then they had deployed a worker that WeWeb has made. And WeWeb is a visual tool. But then to solve this pain point of like dynamic meta tags or something, they had to deploy a worker. And that was messing up with the way Outseta works. So I had to go in and fix this worker for him. And so I was like, so then I went down into the Cloudflare not Cloudflare. Yes. It's Cloudflare. Yes. Because there's another one that's called CloudFront. Dyslexic me does have a problem with all of these brand names. But so I went down the Cloudflare rabbit hole, and oh my God, they're doing some insane stuff. But like a worker is basically a serverless function. I mean, it's not even basically, it is a serverless function. It usually is allowed to live longer and has more memory, and it's just like a beefed up version of what we are used to seeing with like Vercel or Netlify. So you can do like longer, larger things with it. And now they've also come, this is a super side note, but they come up with something called durable objects that are little like mini databases with a worker attached to it, and it will spin up in the region closest to the person invoking it. So if a user is in the US, it will like spin it up over in the US, but if the user is in Europe, it will spin it up over in Europe. Anyway, it was super fascinating. It's just a JavaScript class, and it's like its little mini app, I guess,
mini
little
server, right? Yeah,
mini server, anything. It reminds me a little bit about Soap, I guess. Wasn't Soap like they had like these like little pieces that anyway, that was a side note. But this made me think the first version of Galleon or our like MVP could be a visual interface that generates generates a worker. for the use case that we've been like going after, where they can connect a authentication provider with a data provider, and then configure row level security or some other kind of authorization in the interface, and then we can just spit out the worker, and they can go and copy paste that worker into their Cloudflare account, because it seems like a lot of them already have Cloudflare accounts. And it seems like a thing that they're willing to do in a similar way that people were willing to just copy paste anything into WordPress back in my younger days. So in that way, we don't have to kind of sit on the secrets. We don't have to sit on the infrastructure for like this first version, and we can like see if this is something people would be interested in at all. So that would be kind of the most advanced, I guess, or the most like in the forefront. But I mean, if they're not interested at all, then maybe the next wave of less advanced visual developers wouldn't be interested either. So, and then I was like, I'm gonna build it all on workers and blah blah blah. But then I was like, no, let's have a very boring technology underneath there, and then we can spit out workers. And then if we're gonna host this, Cloudflare now has something called partner workers. So we as Galleon could deploy workers on behalf of customers. So we could still use the same the same app, the same everything, but we would deploy it to Cloudflare for them. And I see one of the, so this has all been like the technical kind of reasons why this is easier for us. But I think from a customer perspective, it's also super interesting because you are then not tied to our service. Like if we go down next week or next month, the worker you've copied would still be yours on Cloudflare. And you could have another developer go in and like fix the code there. It's,
right.
So it could also be a way to kind of alleviate that trust issue with being a new service and a new provider. But our benefit could be that if you do it on our platform, we save all of your configurations. If you want to do a change, you can come back and do a change, and you get a new worker and you copy paste that over. So there's still a value in kind of both the visual infrastructure or the visual interface, but also that we can kind of save your settings and everything, so it's easier to come back and do it. And then next step, we can deploy it for you when trust is built. So that I don't know, it was a fun kind of, I had a couple of days after user interviews and like reading this, where I was like, oh, whatever, the roller coaster of having a new idea. I was like, oh, should we just make it a worker app? Like what? And like, if they're just copy pasting nilly, with like, do they care? And will they ever use our product? And then I was like, well, this is a very narrow scope, and we could make it for like one auth provider and one data provider and just like test it. Because it's people are interested. They were describing issues that in the user interviews that we would solve. But it also needs to be like felt in a way.
Right. Yeah.
And how can we do that as small as possible?
The only thing I'd say is like, especially if you do the copy paste thing, business model wise, not a good idea. Like, because they start to try copy paste their code and then cancel. Like,
oh yeah,
they will
not. So that will not be the paid version.
Yeah. The automatically deploying for them, I guess you could argue, like, we deploy it for you, but once you cancel, we just like shut it down. I think that will work better from a business model point of view. But anything where they just have to go in there once and then not get any value from your tool is, I don't want to say bad, because I mean, if you're aware of it and like fine with it, then so be it. But like, it definitely doesn't warrant a subscription.
Oh no.
Then business model wise, it might be tricky to make this a viable business, right? Like, even if you charge one time for it, will be hard, I guess, because then you don't get the recurring aspect of it. So that's the only thing I'd say keep in mind while figuring this out.
Oh yeah. I don't think this is going to be something that would be like a super, like a paid version. But it could also, I was thinking it could also be, we could choose some simpler use case, like a simpler use cases or simpler
Yeah. Could be a good like lead
free
magnet of
tool.
sorts, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I like. So if we make it now to kind of test out if they even like our kind of thinking about how you choose the auth provider, how you connect it to the data provider, what kind of options should you have for doing the configuration of the like authorization kind of bit, and we could get like more eyeballs on that and feedback on that as a free kind of MVP. But then we could use parts of that to make, as you say, like a lead magnet where you can do very simple stuff, like maybe only filter on one column or like do one thing and only some providers. And that could be like a way where they can test out the product before going in
Right.
fully. Yeah, but I don't think they're going to pay for the even one-off,
Yeah.
because then they're going to use AI, right? But we can also position it a little bit as a, this code will be correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I've asked AI to do similar things again and again. And I have a feeling around like 80-90% if I'm very specific. But the people needing this, they don't know what to ask for. And when I ask it more in a general fashion, is it secure? Nah, no. Very often it's not. So in a way we can actually kind of position ourselves against AI like we're, it's deterministic. Like you will get the same worker if you do the same options every time. You can come back and do it again. But yeah, it's definitely the copy and paste is not a business model in its way, in itself, but I think it's a good way to just test that ID at all. Because I tried to explain it and I think I can mock it up a little bit, but I think making a mock up is going to take around the same time for me than to make it in React. Like if you're going to make an interactive mock up that gives you all the options, like that would be.
Yeah, sometimes like just building a simple version is easier and quicker than like coming up with like, I don't know, a sophisticated landing page explaining the benefits and the features and all of that. If you just build like the thing in a day, then it's probably worth just building the thing and showing it to people directly.
And I think AI can be super helpful in building the thing because I know exactly what I want in my head. So it can type for me, and hopefully I have something good. And then I booked Carter, which is his name, from Approximate Ted. So I have somebody to chat to while sailing.
Nice.
So it's like it's just that I can like come with like issues and he will just answer, and I have my own, I guess, technotherapist. I don't know if he wants to be that, but super helpful to have somebody with knowledge in the tech that I'm going to be using to just like be a second eye or just be somebody that I can run things by. So that's going to be interesting to test out. And I think it's great. I said like from June, and obviously first week of June probably won't do anything or talk to him, but it's nice that, I'm already like paying for the service and want to use it. So hopefully that will make me start making it so that I have something to talk about. So in a way that is a little bit of accountability. And then I just must say, so for Outseta, I've been like, one of the things I dread, which because I am a developer, is to write the docs. And I've created all these demos, and I've created docs for almost all the demos. But after writing the last one with Claude, I realized how bad mine are. And I must really, really say that if you have code, like if you have a code demo and you explain what you want the point of the article to be, like Claude comes up with really good articles because you provided it with the code, and it's very simplified code because it's demo code. So it can like extract what is the point of this demo and do the things that I'm not that good at, which is like, I've gotten pretty good at intros, but outros, I just never know what to write. And Claude just came up with like key points. I'm like, yes, let's go through the key points of this demo. And it was correct. And it's not like I use it right off the bat because it's never that good, But having that chat back and forth, it feels like working with, when you like workshop something, it just like takes a lot shorter calendar wise, because if you write an article and then you get feedback on the article and then it comes back and you go back and forth, like it takes a lot of time. But with Claude, like doing a similar thing, asking like, does this intro now make sense? And it was like, no, but here's 3 different rewrites. Okay, well, I'll use this one and then fix a little bit. Super helpful. And I also, if we have Wi-Fi though, or internet, I guess Wi-Fi we have, but if we have internet, I also think docs will be the focus while I'm sailing, because I've done a lot of coding that hasn't demos for customers and just custom snippets for them that hasn't gotten an article because that's not as fun. So I think maybe trying to have that as the focus while sailing, and getting Claude's help to clean up the ones that I've made myself and give them proper outros and intros and all of that. I think that could be super helpful for Artseta. So I guess that's it. Other than that, I've just been stressing out because we're leaving.
I guess the next episode, you'll either be on the boat already or like just to be about to go on the boat, right? Like, so that will be
nice. Hopefully on the boat, because I think the captain would like to leave on June 10th, which is a Tuesday. So I think he's thinking that we're leaving that day, which means we should be on the boat a couple of days earlier. Right. But we'll have this conversation with him coming up. We just finished. So for us, it's been like 17th of May, and then it's summer is coming. So all of the activities Lillian are doing have their like summer recital, I guess. And for her circus, they actually had a full hobby pro, I guess, performance at the Youth Theatre Festival in Oslo. So on Saturday, there was like rehearsals half of the day. And then on Sunday, they had 2 performances at 1:00 and 3:00. We were there for both. And it was so much better than I had imagined. Both her bit, but like all of the bits, like the costume, the parents made the costumes. The costumes were just insane. So I want to be in the costume committee next year. But also just the performances and what they've been able to learn over 1 year. I'm like blown out of my mind. Nice. And almost all of them did like aerobatics, like different types of aerobatics. But Lillian wanted to be a magician. So she did a comedy magician bit with like a person that came up from the audience, and it was a lot of fun to watch, and just an insanely proud parent at this point. At this
Very
moment.
Cool.
I don't think I would have at any point done that.
Nice.
No. But
cool.
That's it.
Yeah. Then have a couple of good weeks. Good luck with getting everything packed and prepped and loaded onto the boat. And I don't know. See you around the interwebs. Until
absolutely. Bye-bye.
Bye.